next speaker is an author of Disrupting Africa, the Rise of African Innovation, and Taking on Silicon Valley, how Africa's innovators will change its future. He has been named one of the 100 most influential people of African descent, an initiative by the United Nations. He has explored how African innovation truly has the potential to change the African narrative, as well as global and pan-African trends shaping the landscape in Africa. More recently, he has begun to explore the overlap between social sciences, particularly anthropology, and the rise of African technology, arguing that we may have underestimated the value of African innovation. He is also the founder of the Disrupting Africa Encyclopedia, an online platform dedicated to identify the 30 million Africans who can change the narrative and legacy of Africa. He is the writer of CNBC Africa, focusing on the social and technological trends in African innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Welcome on stage, Nnamdi Oranye.
Hello. Hi, I'm not going to dance, just for the record. I'm not dancing. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. The pressure's too much. The energy in the room is too much. The speakers, just too much. I'm used to being a very calm speaker and chill, so please bear with me. No dancing, no singing, no shouting. All right, so before I start, I'll tell you a bit of background to me. I'm Nigerian, but I was born in the UK, went to high school in Nigeria, university in Botswana, so Kiautu Setswana, but I don't speak very well, yeah. Did my master's in Australia, lived there for about 10 years, and now live in South Africa since 2012. My wife is half Zambian, so my kid is growing up very confused. Where am I from, right? But the reason I tell you this story is it's for two reasons. One, it's very, very exciting times to be in Africa, very exciting times. And secondly, it's very exciting times to be African. And what happens is, because of what I do, I travel a lot, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, I meet a lot of impressive Africans. There's something that keeps happening every time I go to conferences, I speak, regardless of which country. Most people don't know about these innovators and entrepreneurs. And what I started doing was starting to write, promote these innovators. I had a show on Power FM a while back. I wrote a couple of books like it was announced. And now I just give talks around innovation. And today, with Harry inviting me here to talk about the future of work, what does it mean for you guys? Most of you guys, I'm assuming, are in university. And that's what I'm going to try and do today. So one of the things we assume is that in Africa, we don't have technology. We don't have innovation. And I asked the question, how do we objectively talk about Africa and African technology? The reason actually why innovation is very important in the African context is when you see our population growth, even use South Africa as an example, 54 million people, Nigeria, where I come from, 200 plus million people. Africa is just growing, right? So we can't roll out more traditional infrastructure. You can't roll out more bricks and mortar schools. You can't roll out more hospitals. You've got to use technology to help solve these problems. And when I write very objectively. I use a lot of statistics, social sciences, anthropology. Is anyone in social sciences here? Yeah, so you guys don't know what anthropology is, the social sciences. Anthropology is the study of human behavior. And I look at a lot of global tech trends, like the rise of WhatsApp, Facebook, Google, what the impact is here. And we'll start with some interesting trends. How many people knew about this trend? One people. 40% of the world's working population in about 15 years will be in Africa. 40%. That's, by the way, you guys. This is an exciting and scary statistic at the same time. It's exciting because it means Africa will become a global powerhouse. All right, this part you guys are meant to be clapping and stuff, right? Very exciting, right? 40% of the world's working population will be in Africa. The scary part, though, is if you guys are not prepared, then we become a liability, right? And the reality is we can't wait till 2035 or 15 years to start making you guys prepared. We have to start now, right? Let's talk about more stats. 35% of the world's largest cities will be in Africa by the end of the century. It's currently sitting at about 10%. This is very interesting because it means, when you look at it from a population growth point of view and economic growth point of view, Africa is going to be it. That explains also why there's a lot of interest right now in Africa. Second one, 7 of those largest cities we talked about will be in Nigeria. The largest city, yes, thank you. Yeah. The largest city in the world by the end of the century will be Lagos. Yeah. So it's a good time to be friends with Nigerians. Right? Good time, right? And I can tell you the stats. I know it's a joke, but I tell the stats. Currently, at the end of the century, 1 in 4 Africans will be Nigerian. That's the reality. Sitting currently at about 1 in 5, right? Roughly. The last one, which is actually interesting, and this is also important when you start to think of South Africa in context of an African perspective. Antananarivo, which is the capital of Madagascar, is an island, will be larger than Johannesburg. Does anyone know Antananarivo? Have anyone been there? No? But it's going to be larger than Joburg very soon, right? So Joburg in itself would not necessarily remain one of the large economic hubs of the continent. So the question becomes, what do you have to offer as part of this large population growth? So we've talked about statistics, and just to give you some context. Now I move to anthropology. And I came across anthropology about 3 years ago when I was writing my second book, Taking on Silicon Valley. Because one of the problems with being an engineer, statistics, it gets very boring when you're just talking about numbers, right? Like, who are these people? When I talk about 35% of the world's working population, or 40% rather, will be in Africa, like, who are these people? And that's what anthropology does. It's a study of human behavior, whether past, present, or future, to give context. And one of the, quick anthropology conversations when you think of Nigeria is we might have to learn Yoruba. Yeah. Right? So Lagos, Yoruba is the largest, is the most widely spoken language in Lagos, right? And sometimes people think this is funny when I say it, right? But think about it. When you were dealing in China, there's a time, the rise of China. What happened if you want to play with the Chinese? You have to learn Mandarin, right? So if you want to be in Lagos, you have to learn Yoruba. This might sound far-fetched until you hear last year that Yoruba became an official language in Brazil last year. So if the Brazilians know something about Yoruba, we also should start to know something about Yoruba. Another stat, another anthropology view, this stats, $2 a day. You guys heard about it? There's World Bank reports, UN reports. When you see the stats, it usually is accompanied by a starving child with flies in the face. Have you guys seen those? Yeah. Don't get me started on the flies in the face, because that's a separate conversation. But let's talk about $2 a day. What does it mean? It says most of Africa lives under $2 a day. And if you start to wear an anthropology lens on this, right? If you look at it just practically, it means Africa is poor, right? That's what it says. But let's look at it from an anthropology lens. Let's say, for example, this person lives in a rural area somewhere. It doesn't matter which country. But they most likely have built a house by themselves, whether it's a tin house, mud hut, or whatever it is, bricks. They own their house. They have a garden with vegetables, yeah? Normally, they have chicken, cows, and maybe the $2, they only need it for airtime, right? If you're in finance, it means that person has a higher net worth than you, multi-B, who lives in Santon, paying a mortgage. Do you agree? Right? So this is a story, which actually ties to the next point I'm going to be talking about, that we tell ourselves stories that may be true, but not objective. This is true to say that most of Africa lives on $2 a day, but it's not objective. Right? And one of the big challenges we have as Africans is we let other people tell our stories. Yeah. So we need to start telling our own stories. Then we moved to, I talked about statistics, we talked about anthropology, now we look at some global tech trends, and this is very interesting. So I remember the day on Power FM, there's a time I had the CEO of Eutelsat to my show because they'd done a partnership with Facebook. They're providing free internet across Africa. I'm like, wow, this is exciting. Had the guy on the show, we're talking about it. Until one day I started asking myself, after the show, I asked myself, why would Facebook provide free internet across Africa as an example, right? They're a for-profit company, right? So they're not going to do it for free. And it started forcing me, that's actually how I started writing my second book, forcing me to look at the strategies of these global tech giants. And I'll talk about two. Oh, Google, sorry, it's up there. Did you guys hear about Google becoming a bank last year? Yeah, only a few people. Anyone heard of Facebook Libra? No, not a few people, right? Google last year became a bank. They got a license in Lithuania and Ireland, which means now they can compete with any African bank, whether Standard Bank, FNB, whoever, they can compete, right? As an engineer, as a tech person, it's very exciting for me, but as an African, I'm very scared, right? Because how can you take on Google if they become a bank? Because they know everything about you. They know when you're when you're looking to buy a car, what do you type? You type in Google. Yeah, I'm looking for Hyundai or BMW. They know when you're having a baby because you're typing pram, right? They know everything about you. So it's not far-fetched for someone like Google to say, Namdi, we're seeing you having a baby. You need a new car. We've negotiated a deal with BMW Hyundai. Here's a 20% discount, one-click checkout. Man, I'll do that, right? Because if you compare it to the banks now, how many forms do you have to fill? A lot of forms, right? The same thing with Facebook, the same thing. They know where you are. It doesn't matter because you're always checking in. I'm sure many people have checked into this conference, and we're forced by Harry to do hashtags, right? So they know we're here. Just giving context. Another one, Truecaller. How many people heard of Truecaller? So if you don't know Truecaller is probably one of the best underrated technologies I've actually come across from let's talk about Silicon Valley. So if you don't know Truecaller, what they do is they block out all these unknown callers, right? So it just comes up on your phone as spam, right? So you don't have to pick up these calls. But it was very interesting when I was writing my second book, doing some research. As of today, 3 banks in South Africa are blocked. They come up as spam when you use Truecaller. 2 telcos come up as spam on Truecaller. How many people have iPhones? Yeah, a few people have iPhones. Did you notice on the SMS bits, there's a time when it changed? If you look at SMS, there's SMS messages and then there's spam, right? If you go on your spam, you'll see most likely your telco SMSs come up as spam. You ask the question, how is it that a small fintech can block large multinationals in Africa? And by the way, we don't do anything about it, right? And this trend is coming across over and over and over and again. And the reason why I actually flag this trend is for you guys, right? So let's use Truecaller as call centers. There are people behind the calls who have a job. If they can't get through to you, what does that mean? They're out of a job. And then there's a roll-on effect because that person's probably taking care of 3 or 4 people. If they're out of a job, those kids can't be fed and blah, blah, blah. That it's very important for us to know these things happening. From a customer point of view, it might be exciting, but from a macroeconomic point of view, there's a huge challenge for us. And those 3 things, think statistics, think about the anthropology and the tech trends, start to paint a picture of what Africa would look like moving forward. So what does this mean for us? And I use the word Africa, I just not focused on South Africa, I use Africa in general. So when I look at those statistics and tech trends, I ask the question, can we predict the future? Right? The truth is, when anyone's talking about innovation, technology, everyone feels like they can predict the future. As of the conference once where someone was talking about, we'll be hugging robots in 2050. I'm like, come on, man. Yeah. We're not going to be hugging robots in 2050. I don't think we're good. So no one can predict the future, right? But we can infer the future. And one of the things I started doing, and I'm an engineer, I'm very, very interested in academics, is I came across Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know if you guys know the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Yeah, most of you guys would know this graph. But those who don't know, it's very simple. It says for any country, you start from the bottom. You have to solve the basic stuff like health, education, procreation, things like that, before you move to the top to become self-actualized, right? And most of the innovators in Africa are trying to solve the basic stuff. So when I look at my database of innovators I speak to and talk to, they're trying to solve the basic stuff. How do we pay each other? How do we send money to each other? How do we provide education and health? And at the top, most people haven't actually self-actualized. We're not solving self-actualization. And I compared this to Silicon Valley. So Silicon Valley is about 80 years old now, 90 years old. And they follow the same trajectory. So when they started, they had basic things like education, had Google, how do you communicate to each other, Facebook, social media. Then, make a bit of money, you have Uber, Airbnb. Then now you have people like Elon Musk trying to go to Mars, they've self-actualized, and you have Google trying to cure death, right? It's crazy because they're self-actualized, so you can do it if you want to, right? The problem, though, for us is most of our innovators are here trying to solve this, the basic stuffs, right? But Silicon Valley are coming in at the minute there and solving other problems for us. How many people use WhatsApp? Almost everyone uses WhatsApp, right? But that's not an African solution. Before WhatsApp, we used to SMS. Now we don't SMS, and what's happening to the people with the jobs who used to work for telcos? They're out of a job, right? So it's very important that I put this up here for us to understand what work is going to look like when you guys join the workforce, right? And like Jimmy said, you can't follow us. You can't do the things we were doing. You have to come up with your own creative and innovative ideas because the competitors are very different now. And then the question I ask myself is, how do we know we are moving forward? How do we know we're disrupting Africa? And sometimes we have this notion where we always want to talk about the innovators. We also want to talk about the tech people, right? We get very fascinated by them, and we forget the people who do the work, the accountants, the librarians, the doctors. We forget those people. And this theory is a very interesting one. Which is, it's an academic paper, diffusion innovation theory. Fascinating. If you go into marketing, please know this theory, right? But it's quite simple. The theory is quite simple. Imagine you're trying to sell 1 million iPhones, right? The theory says you need to get to about 15 to 18% of people using iPhones. Then when you get to that point, then everyone can say, oh, there are lots of people using iPhones, and then it just becomes like a viral effect. If you never get to that point, then your product never takes off, right? A subset of that are called innovators there. These are the people who are just crazy about your product. Like, I love iPhones. There's some people, those people who the iPhone X is coming out and they're queuing outside midnight, yeah, but they can get it the next day for half price. Those people, they're called the innovators, the crazy people. And then I decided, what if we apply this theory to Africa. What does it mean? Currently, there are 1.2 billion people in Africa. Now, we have to get to a point here where we have people who are just positive about our continents, right? People who just, like, we know it's hectic, we know we have our problems, but we just love our continents. We love our country. That number is about 250 million. Then you have some crazy people here who decide they're going to quit their jobs, like Harry and, Jimmy. Quit the jobs, and they come on the stage and tell us, be pumped up and all that, quit your jobs. Like, hey, don't quit your job if you don't have money. But they are visionaries, right? They see a problem and they go for it. They try to solve it. And those people there, the innovators, when you do the mathematics, is about 30 million Africans. And that's part of my life's mission. When we talk about what's your passion, what wakes you up in the morning, my passion is to find those 30 million people and we write their stories. Because it's important for the people who are going to become entrepreneurs to know them, right? And then us who sit here, we might end up becoming doctors, engineers, lawyers, and we're there to support these entrepreneurs. Because they can't be entrepreneurs by themselves. They still need the doctors, the accountants, the lawyers, the call center agents, whatever it is. And our job is to help them be the best. So you can choose, hopefully when you get into a career, to be on this side. What I'm hoping is you're not on the other side. All right, so this part here, the people, think about in the phone stage, they're still on BBM. You know, yeah? Those are the people who just, I don't want to change, right? We don't want to be on that side. And then what I'm going to do now is talk to you about a few innovators. And why I would like to end with talking about innovators is sometimes when we talk about innovation and technology, we always think about Mark Zuckerberg, we think about Elon Musk, all these people. But the truth is, we can't relate to them, right? Intellectually, we're like, yeah, I can be like Elon Musk, but I don't know Elon Musk. I can't relate to him, right? However, you can relate to someone who works in Braamfontein, who is an innovator. Because I know him. I know his grandmother. I know, you know what I mean? I know him, so I can be like him. I'll talk about three of them. Anyone know this guy, Ntutuko? Livestock Wealth, one person, which is very sad, by the way. Livestock Wealth, they have an offices not far from here in Bram. He is probably one of the impressive African innovators. Please, you need to know about him. He's come up with a solution called Livestock Wealth, and the premise is around shares and bonds, right? So most Africans, like, even I'm educated, I've got 2 degrees, but I don't understand stocks and bonds. It's too complicated, right? But Africans, we understand what? Cattle, livestock. So what he's done is made cattle an asset class. So you can go on his platform and buy parcels of cattle. You can log on online, look at the kraal, look at the cattle and say, oh, that's mine. If the cattle gives birth, you can sell it and make money. This solution, doesn't matter which African country you're in, it makes sense. Livestock Wealth. Here in Braamfontein, by the way. I'm not talking about people in random countries. They're around the corner from here. Vula Mobile. Anyone know about Vula Mobile? No? So also it's very sad for me when I come to a conference and I ask these questions and no one knows them. But if I ask you guys, do you know Mark Zuckerberg? How many people put their hands up? Yeah. Why don't we know our own African innovators? I'll tell you about Vula Mobile, an ophthalmologist, is an eye doctor. Based in Cape Town, he used to be frustrated. You know, he would drive from Cape Town to rural Western Cape 4 hours to see maybe Gogo. Gogo, you've got cataracts in your eye. Then he'll drive back to his hospital. Then Gogo must drive 4 hours to the hospital for operation. That's 20 minutes. Just very inefficient. So what he created was an app called Vula Mobile that a health worker in rural, wherever close to Gogo, can scan her eye and say, Gogo, you've got cataracts. And immediately book her into the closest doctor around her. So she doesn't have to drive 4 hours back. Last year, they've done over 100,000 operations to date. 100,000. You actually Google him. There's a video where there's a Gogo who hadn't seen, he's been blind with cataract for 9 years. She had the operation, And she was just screaming, I can finally see, I can finally see. And these are Africans doing stuff in our backyard, but we don't know about them. Please tell me you know Aisha Pando. Swoop South, 1, 2, 3, at least 6 people. Yeah. Female innovator. So if you don't know Aisha Pando, she came up with a product called Swoop South, which is like the Uber for domestic cleaning, right? And in a country like ours now, where we've got high unemployment rates, you know, we have to support innovators and entrepreneurs who solve unemployment in our country. So what she came up with is an Uber for domestic cleaning. You want to clean your house, you download the app, you select, I want to clean my room, wash the clothes, blah, blah, blah. You pay, and then the closest domestic help based on the rating will come to you, clean the house, and it's sorted. I think 2 years ago, she had hired 3,500 domestic workers. This year, she's hitting about 10,000 domestic workers. And this solution, it doesn't matter which African country you take it to, we have the same problem, solving real problems in our country today. I'm going to end with a story of my favorite innovator of all time. Her name is Fatima Alfiri, favorite innovator of all time. She was born a while back, and when she was a kid, she was born in Tunisia, then she moved to Morocco with her dad, you know, and then, you know, when they were growing up, her dad became an entrepreneur, he had a business, then passed away and left her money. And she's like, okay, what am I going to do with this money? I'm going to set up a university. And she set up a university in Morocco. This is where the twist comes in the story. The twist is she was born 800 BC, over 1,000 years ago. She set up the first university in the world that still operates today in Morocco. Thank you to the clicking thing, yeah. You have to clap for that. Thank you. How many people know Fatima? No one. If there was no Fatima, we might not have Harvard today, Yale, Oxford, all this, or Wits. A female Muslim over 1,000 years ago set up the first university in the world. Before her, there was no concept of universities, but we don't know about her. Her story should be the first story in all our history books. And we have a responsibility to tell our own stories. Only that